In 1943, the Allies were preparing for one of the most important invasions of World War II. Their target was Sicily, a large island in the Mediterranean sitting just below Italy. If the Allies could capture Sicily, they could open the door into Europe. They could weaken Italy, they could put pressure on Germany, and they could change the course of the war. But there was one major problem. Everyone knew Sicily was the obvious target. The Germans knew it. The Italians knew it. Even Winston Churchill reportedly compared Sicily to something everyone could see coming. So, if the Allies attacked Sicily directly, the enemy would be waiting. Thousands of soldiers could die before even reaching the beaches. The Allies needed more than ships, planes, and weapons. They needed a lie so detailed, so strange, and so convincing that Adolf Hitler himself would believe it. And that lie would be carried by a man who never existed. This is the story of Operation Mincemeat, one of the strangest deception missions of the Second World War, a mission built around fake letters, a secret briefcase, a dead body, and one impossible goal: to make the Germans believe the Allies were not going to invade Sicily, even though Sicily was exactly where they were going. By early 1943, the war had reached a turning point. In North Africa, Allied forces had pushed Axis armies back. The Mediterranean was becoming the next battlefield. The question was simple: where would the Allies strike next? To military planners, Sicily made perfect sense. It was close to North Africa. It controlled key sea routes. And if captured, it could become a stepping stone toward mainland Italy. But because Sicily made so much sense, it was also extremely dangerous. The enemy could predict it. German commanders could move troops there. Coastal defenses could be strengthened. Reinforcements could be waiting. The Allies needed the Germans to look somewhere else. They wanted Hitler to believe the real targets were Greece and Sardinia. Greece, because Hitler was already afraid of losing control in the Balkans. Sardinia, because it was another island target that seemed believable. If the deception worked, German troops would be pulled away from Sicily. If it failed, thousands of Allied soldiers might walk straight into a trap. Inside British intelligence, two men were given the task of making the impossible seem real. One was Charles Cholmondeley, an eccentric intelligence officer from the Royal Air Force. The other was Ewan Montagu, a lawyer who had become a naval intelligence officer. Together, they worked in the strange world of wartime deception, a world where fake radio messages, double agents, forged documents, and carefully planted rumors could be just as powerful as tanks. But Cholmondeley and Montagu needed something bigger, something the Germans would not dismiss as another rumor. They needed physical proof, something that looked accidental, something that would appear to fall directly into enemy hands. Then they remembered an old idea. What if a dead body washed ashore carrying secret military documents? The enemy would think they had discovered something by chance, and because they believed it was stolen intelligence, they might trust it more. It was a disturbing idea. But in war, intelligence officers often thought in disturbing ways. The plan was simple, in theory. Find a body. Give him a false identity. Dress him as a British officer. Attach a briefcase filled with fake, secret documents. Release the body near the coast of Spain. Then wait for the documents to reach German spies. Spain was officially neutral during the war, but British intelligence knew that German agents were active there. If the body washed up in the right place, Spanish officials might inspect the papers, and sooner or later, copies could reach Germany. The location they chose was Huelva, on the southern coast of Spain, a place where German intelligence had connections, a place where a dead British officer carrying a briefcase would attract attention. But the plan had to be perfect, because if one detail looked fake, the entire operation would collapse. The man could not simply be a body. He needed a life, a name, a job, a personality, a past, a reason to be carrying important documents. And so, British intelligence created Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. But Major Martin was not real. He was invented. Every detail of his identity was carefully built. He had identity papers, a uniform, keys, letters, receipts, personal belongings, even a love story. In his pockets they placed items that made him feel human: a photograph of a fiancée named Pam, love letters, a receipt for an engagement ring, ticket stubs, small personal objects, the kind of random things a real person might carry without thinking. These tiny details were called pocket litter, and they mattered. Because real people are messy. Real lives leave traces. A fake identity with only official papers might seem suspicious. But a man carrying love letters, bills, and small personal memories felt real. Major William Martin had to be believable not just to a soldier, but to a spy. Then came the most important part: the briefcase. Inside it were fake letters written to look like high-level military correspondence. They suggested that the Allies were planning to attack Greece and Sardinia. Sicily was mentioned in a way that made it seem like a distraction, a cover story. The lie was clever because it did not scream for attention. It did not say, "This is the secret plan." It sounded like private military communication between important men, exactly the kind of thing the enemy would want to steal. But creating the fictional Major Martin was only half the mission. They also needed a real body. Eventually, British officials obtained the body of Glyndwr Michael, a Welshman who had died in London. For decades, his identity was kept secret. To the world, he would be known only as Major William Martin, the man who never was. British intelligence dressed him in uniform. They placed the fake personal items on him. They prepared the briefcase. They made it look as if he had been an officer traveling by plane, carrying sensitive documents when the plane crashed into the sea. The body would then wash ashore. At least, that was the story they wanted the enemy to believe. But even this part was risky. The body had to appear as if it had died recently at sea. The documents had to survive the water. The briefcase had to remain attached. Spanish officials had to find it. German agents had to see it. And after all that, the Germans still had to believe it. One mistake could ruin everything. In April 1943, the body was transported with extreme secrecy. It was placed inside a special container filled with dry ice to preserve it during the journey. The container was taken to Scotland. From there, it was loaded onto a British submarine. The submarine was HMS Seraph. Its mission was unusual even by wartime standards. It was not carrying troops for a raid. It was not hunting enemy ships. It was carrying a dead man with a fake identity, fake memories, and fake documents that could change a real war. On April 30th, 1943, HMS Seraph surfaced off the coast of Spain, near Huelva. The crew brought the body onto the deck. They gave him the final treatment of an officer lost at sea. Then they released him into the water. From that moment, everything depended on the current. The body had to drift toward shore. It had to be found by the right people, and the briefcase had to be noticed. A few hours later, a local fisherman discovered the body. Major William Martin had arrived. The first part of the plan had worked. Spanish authorities took the body. The papers and briefcase were recovered. British officials then began the second part of the deception. They acted worried, very worried. They sent messages asking for the return of the documents. They behaved exactly as if the briefcase contained real military secrets. This was part of the performance, because British intelligence knew that some messages could be intercepted. The more desperate Britain seemed to recover the papers, the more valuable the papers appeared. The bait was now in the water. The question was whether Germany would bite. At first, the documents were returned to the British. On the surface, it looked like Spain had respected neutrality. But British intelligence examined the papers carefully, and they found signs that the envelopes had been opened, the documents had likely been copied. That meant the fake plans had probably reached German hands. Now came the most tense part. Would the Germans believe them? British intelligence waited. They listened. They watched enemy movements, and then the signs began to appear. Germany started treating Greece and Sardinia as serious targets. Troops and resources were shifted. Defences were strengthened away from Sicily. Hitler had taken the bait. The fake Major William Martin had done his job. The lie had travelled from a beach in Spain through intelligence channels and into the heart of German military planning. On July 10th, 1943, the Allies launched the real invasion, Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily. More than 100,000 Allied troops crossed the sea and attacked the island. It was still a dangerous operation. There was still fighting. There were still losses. Operation Mincemeat did not win Sicily by itself. No single deception could do that. But it helped. It helped make the enemy uncertain. It helped pull attention away from the real target. It helped make Sicily less defended than it might have been. And in war, even a small shift in enemy belief can save thousands of lives. The invasion of Sicily became a major success. Within weeks, Mussolini's rule in Italy began to collapse. Italy moved towards surrender, and the Allies gained a path into southern Europe. All of this began with one of the strangest ideas in military history: a man who did not exist. A fake identity built from love letters and receipts, a briefcase full of lies, a submarine in the dark, a body drifting toward the Spanish coast, and an enemy so convinced by the story that they changed their defences. But there is another side to Operation Mincemeat. Behind the clever plan and the intelligence victory, there was Glinda Michael, a real person. For years, his name was hidden behind the fictional identity of Major William Martin. His body had been used to create a lie that helped shape history, and long after the war, his real identity was finally acknowledged. On his grave in Huelva, Spain, the name Major William Martin remains part of the story. But so does the name Glinda Michael, the real man behind the man who never was. Operation Mincemeat worked because it understood something simple about deception. The best lie is not the loudest one, it is the one that feels accidental, the one people think they discovered for themselves. The Germans were not handed fake documents. They believed they had found secret documents by chance, and because they believed they had stolen the truth, they trusted the lie. That is what made the operation brilliant. Not just the fake papers, not just the body, not just the submarine, but the psychology. British intelligence created a story so detailed that the enemy completed it in their own mind. They saw a dead officer. They saw a briefcase. They saw urgent British messages asking for the papers back. And they thought they had uncovered the real invasion plan. But what they had really found was a trap made of paper, ink, identity, and imagination. In most war stories, victory comes from battles, from soldiers advancing, from aircraft flying overhead, from ships crossing the sea. But Operation Mincemeat was different. It was a battle fought before the battle, a battle fought inside the enemy's mind. No one watching the body wash ashore in Spain could have known what it meant. To them, it may have looked like one more tragedy of war, one more lost officer, one more secret mission gone wrong. But that was exactly the point. It had to look like a mistake, because the entire plan depended on the enemy believing they were seeing something they were never meant to see. And that is why Operation Mincemeat remains one of the most famous deception missions in history. It sounds almost impossible, too strange to be real. A fake officer, a fake fiancé, fake letters, a real corpse, a submarine, a neutral country full of spies, and a lie that helped protect the real invasion of Sicily. Sometimes history turns not only on armies, but on stories. The stories leaders believe, the stories spies steal, the stories enemies tell themselves. In 1943, the Allies needed Germany to believe one story, that Greece and Sardinia were the targets, and Sicily was only a distraction. So they created Major William Martin, a man with no real birth, no real military career, no real fiancé, no real future. But for a few crucial weeks, he became one of the most important men in the war. Because the man who never existed helped fool one of the most dangerous regimes in history, and his false story helped open the door to a real invasion. So, the next time you hear about Operation Mincemeat, remember this. It was not just a strange spy trick. It was a reminder that in war, information can be as powerful as weapons. A single document can move armies. A believable lie can change strategy. And sometimes the fate of thousands can depend on whether the enemy believes what they think they have found. Comment below if you think Operation Mincemeat was the greatest deception mission of World War II. And subscribe for more strange, true stories, forgotten operations, and historical mysteries that sound too unbelievable to be real.